This is surviving the music industry.
That sounds sick.
I didn't think about how that sounded.
Hey, what's up, America? I know some shit is going down, but you're listening to SMI. I'm your host, Brandon Harrington. This is my podcast where you get to listen to me gripe and complain about my life, and then I get to have pretty gnarly conversations with guests just like the good Reverend Shawn Amos. We'll get to that in a second. But I have a feeling, I have this emotional roller coaster inside my head and my mind that if you're listening to this right now, you're at least in a pretty good spot, right? You're in your safe space, you know, as a creative, and I don't know, maybe shit hasn't hit the fan, but you're at least emotionally along this fucked up 2020 ride of what's going on. It's such an insane time, right? I mean, I said this last week, and maybe just a couple ones ago of just like, you know, we have SpaceX, we went to the moon, we're in a post-civil rights era. It feels like 1969, but with social media. And can you imagine what social media would have been like in the 60s and 70s? Oh my gosh. Insane to the max. That's what life is kind of feeling like right now. But you know what? There is a beauty, a weird side beauty to this thing. Just follow me just for a second. That I feel like in that time, let's say civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, this time, Bob Dylan, music and songs, protest, the thing that was just going on and what made the 60s and 70s what they are, that you actually have, and you have the choice. You have to basically pick a side of history that you're going to be on. I feel like back then, the lack of social media up to the second news, like you were, some people probably in the dark. I don't think you were in the dark of knowing the climate that's around you geographically, because I think it was, especially dealing with race, that it was just fucked up everywhere, right? I mean, from the south to the north to the east to the west, it was just fucked up for everybody. But I think in this moment in time, you have a chance to say that you're going to choose the side that you're going to be on. Luckily, because we are in 2020, and I think as a white race, and this is coming from a heterosexual Southern male living in the South, that we're a lot more woke than we were, I don't know, 10 years ago. But we still got a long road to hoe, right? I'm not saying that I know exactly what a black man in America is going through, or woman, or child. I have no clue, and I can't compare it to that. And I'm not going to. I'm not even going to try. But I think, at least in this time, that we're following the events of George Floyd and what's happening culturally and pop culture-wise, we have a chance to choose what side we're going to be on and what to do. That could be proactive. That could be reactionary. And we're seeing a lot of the reactionary response from this murder. And I think for the most part, young adults just don't know what to do. And again, I don't know who's like causing the disruption. This is the part and craziness of social media and the power of that thing. You just don't know really how it started, but maybe there's a piece of it where you just don't know how to deal with it, and all this angst and this shit just happens. I don't know. But we're at a point in a time where you don't know what to do. But you know what? Through the course of history, the people that have known what to do, I think we can take a look at Dr. Martin Luther King here, is that it was a place of peace. Sure, he had his demons. He had his shit that was going on. But at the same time, he knew exactly where he stood, and that truth still kind of rings on, right? I mean, peace is always the answer, and then active conversations, and then positive reactionary responses. Such a weird time, and it feels awkward for me to even say that, but seriously, white, black, Protestant, Catholicism, Buddhist, atheists, agnostics, I mean, we can all agree that we want some peace and some reconciliation, right? And that has nothing to do with George Floyd. That has nothing to do with just what's going on racially speaking. But I just think in terms of your own internal headspace, there's lots of things that we can do to help our fellow man here. I think for me personally, that I can't be an innocent bystander. I can't watch this thing happen to America. I can't see this thing happen to my neighbors and affect them and just stand by and say, well, I don't have a dog in the hunt. I can't do anything about it, because that's bullshit. So, I don't know. I encourage everyone that just to listen, respond kindly in a positive way. I mean, just hug it out. I don't know. That's so weird for me to say, because I really don't even like hugs to begin with. But there is this thing of human connectivity, and we're talking about it at a time where human connectivity is brought down, or it's even restrained a lot more because of COVID-19. So what a fucked up time to try to talk about and bring in human connection and connectivity. And we have this invisible thing that's just affecting us all around. Now on top of this, man, what a world we live in. And I don't have the answers. I don't think anybody has the answers. I think all that you could do is try to respond in the best way possible that will enact change, but then also not bring on destruction and hate. Hate is the thing, right? Hate is that seed that continues to grow, and it's easy. It's like a weed. That's exactly what it is. Hate is a weed. You don't need to actively water it. You don't have to actively feed it. It just kind of takes on and morphs into this thing that just overgrows and consumes your life and your garden. I'm living in a garden right now situation, so I feel like I have tons of garden analogies. But fuck, I mean, you just got to pull that shit out. You have to take it out, because if you don't, it consumes you. I've been down that road of hate, and it sucks. It's a time that we need to ask for forgiveness, ask for peace, and start asking ourselves could we do better, and then actively do that thing that's better. I'm so glad I had this conversation with the good Reverend Shawn Amos. I don't know if any of you happen to know much about his story, his life. He's the son of Wally Amos. Some people might know him as Famous Amos, the cookie guy. I had the cookies. I'm a fat kid. I love cookies. But we talked about growing up in Hollywood in the 70s. His mom dealing with mental instability, and then the effects of that. I'm not going to ruin the story for you. But I really encourage everybody. I did this. I read a memoir posted by the Huffington Post. Just Google it, Cookies and Milk, Huffington Post. That's all you got to find. I say let that be our prologue to this conversation. That's going to give you a lot of insight, because we didn't tap into it. We just kind of grazed over it, so we can move on to different stuff of what's going on in Shawn's life. And we got into it. But a couple things you need to know about Shawn. He's a businessman as well. He worked on the industry side, A&R, doing the thing. And we talk about the idea of hustling, where, I mean, he comes from a line of hustlers, and the positive and the negative effects of that mentality. But then also, he is an artist himself. There's these things that manifest and kind of bubble up in you, and I felt like it was the same thing for Shawn, that it was this ordeal and this situation and life events that just overflowed and had to come out in music. He was a script writer, so we touched into that, studied film school for a little bit, then he got the gig doing his thing, and of course went in the A&R, producing a bunch of other stuff too. As a producer, he worked on Solomon Burke's Live in Nashville and Shout, the musical biography of Quincy Jones. So tons of stuff that's going on with this guy. Has tons of things happened for him, and it's happening for him. He's a bluesman. You can hear his harmonica on the theme song of Preacher. So, I mean, he's a little bit of everywhere, right? And I'm just glad I got to know somebody like Shawn. His music really impacted me, especially diving back into everything. So in his past collection, he's an activist, and so a lot of his music spoke in this time right now where there's just shit tons of crazy, right? So it was nice to kind of hear a voice that can put this time in the song written in the past, but then also have at least some clout behind it, some meat behind it to say, oh, okay, I can understand this time a little bit better. He collaborated with The Brotherhood with this newest record, Blue Sky. It's already out. It's been out for a little bit. But killer players are on this thing known as The Brotherhood. You can definitely go to ShawnAmos.com and check out how the project, the genesis of it, everything was kind of made. But we got to know Shawn and kind of get his thoughts on his time just during the course of conversation of his life. I'm so glad that he was willing to go there, being that vulnerable and open to some conversation and how that deals with art, the angst and anger at this time. So conversation was needed. We need more people like the good Reverend. Yes, he is a real actual Reverend. I didn't ask because I already know. He's a man of the cloth. He has the title. He can do the weddings, funerals, all that stuff. He can do the thing. But I enjoy people just like Shawn, again, that are willing to go there, creative forces, talent, has lived a little life, willing to share that with us. So Blue Sky is already out. Go check it out. Go stream it everywhere that you can definitely stream music. Go check him out. The Rev Amos on all social platforms. Just search on it. Whatever your favorite jam is, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He's on there. And hope you guys dig this conversation. Hope you need it just like I did. Is this the good Reverend?
Indeed it is. How are you?
Hey, I'm all right, my man. You doing all right yourself?
Getting through it, yeah. It's no doubt a challenging time, but, one foot in front of the other.
I know, man. Like hearts and prayers to that community and just humanity for itself. The black community as well. You hope things just get better, but I guess shit never really does, right?
Yeah, incrementally. At least.
Yeah, I know.
One step forward, one step back.
Yeah, man, I understand it's tough, but I appreciate your time.
I'm glad. Looking forward to it.
Good, man. Well,
I'm calling from my cell phone, which is the only phone I have. I know in the instructions you preferred a landline. I don't own a landline.
Who owns a landline? What year is this?
So I'm on my cell. Yeah. I'm plugged into a hardwired set of Bang & Olufsen headphones. My phone's on Do Not Disturb. My computer's off.
Bro, you're golden. You read an email. Yeah. Who are you?
It's like both of our time's too valuable. Yeah, so
I know. I'm prepared. I get it too. But you also feel the pain too. You just get an email and it's like a mile long and you just think, oh, man, not today. Not today.
You caught me on a good day.
Are you calling from LA though? Is that where you're from?
No, I'm in Texas. I'm from LA, but I'm in Texas right now. My kids live here, and so and with their mother, my ex, and so I'm hunkered down close to them since all the tours got canceled for the year, and so I'm here so I can be close to the kids.
Hunkering down, dude. I'm from Texas.
Oh, really? What part?
Yeah, East Texas, Texarkana side.
Okay, sure. So I'm North Texas. I'm up north of Dallas in Frisco.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly where it's at. Yeah, man, that's a great place.
It's all right. I'm still getting used to it. It's been, it'll be close to 2 years, and it's still, a suit I'm learning to wear.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't compare it to L.A., that's for sure, or New York. It's like lands apart. It's Texas.
Yeah. Keep it real.
Dude, it is Texas. Trust me. I like Texas, but I'm not one of those assholes. I'll just go ahead and say it. I'm not like pro Texas. There's nothing bigger and better than Texas. There's a lot wrong with Texas, but
but it's funny. I definitely like most people who are not from here, found it very easy to stereotype the place before I arrived. And now that I have been here for a while, it confounds expectations more than I would have thought. And then there is some there's some. It's just full of ironies, actually. I mean, it's not as monolithic and so homogenous as I thought it would be.
Yeah. That is an interesting take, especially you're an outsider, you're a city boy. Big city boys, because I definitely know New York is in the background too. But what I always find fascinating, like especially people in New York, LA, like move to Texas, that go to Texas, they're amazed of just how much meat there is, like just barbecue itself, and like it grosses them out.
Yeah, the dietary patterns here overall are leave something to be desired.
I know it's insane.
People just eat a lot of everything here, pretty for the most part.
And then you add, of course, political stances. I mean, especially for gun control. I mean, I grew up in Texas, so seeing a handgun out in public, holstered, is not a scary thing. But to a lot of people, that's a weird thing. And I completely understand it. It's a scary thing.
Yeah, the relationship with the liberty and firearms and sort of this notion of what it means to live free is it's deep. It's deep. I empathize with pieces of it, I must say. I know
right.
pieces of it completely confound me.
I like that. Because I feel that I can empathize with it too, but I have these internal struggles of, do you really need that AR-15 just to prove your liberty situation?
Yeah.
And that's a personal feeling. And I grew up with rifles and handguns and shotguns, but I don't know. There's a fine line between liberty and then just being an asshole, I feel like. So.
Amen. Amen.
Okay. Dude, I have thoroughly enjoyed kind of stalking you online. Just
there's a lot out there.
So especially realizing the depth and the artistic depth that you have. And then there's there's this suit brain that you have on the business side.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I think my whole life has been about trying to get both those sides to coexist. I'm almost there.
But I don't know. I kind of feel like, I read that article that somebody shared with me through that Huffingpost, the milk and cookies thing. And so,
cookies and milk.
Yeah, cookies and milk, yeah. And so even reading that, and I remember watching your dad, Wally, on Shark Tank. And so putting all this all together and stuff, that dude, one, is a character, but that dude is a hustler too, man. You had to pick up some stuff from that as well.
I grew up around hustlers. I mean, that's I'm sort of second generation hustler. So, it's in the blood. It's in the blood.
All right. So you said you're from LA, but you're also from New York too. What was first?
I was born in New York. My mother and my father were both in the entertainment business in New York, and they're part of this, really, I guess, sort of, early gen, black, Hollywood mafia or something. I think the names that are more well known of that era, like Quincy Jones. My dad was a contemporary of Quincy Jones's, a colleague of his and a friend of his, and I worked for Quincy years later. And a guy named Clarence Avant, who was a music business executive, who's the subject of this great Netflix documentary called The Black Godfather.
Oh yeah,
So my dad was sort of ran with those people, and he was an agent at the William Morris Agency. He was the first black agent in the business, and he booked all the Motown acts, and booked Simon and Garfunkel and the Animals from England, one of the British invasion bands.
Dude, this was the time. This was the time for music.
Really amazing time. And the civil rights movement was loud and in the background. I mean, the foreground really. And so that was the world that my mother and father were part of, and they're in their 30s and sort of at the peak of their powers, and sort of the first people who looked like them to be able to take advantage of at least some part of the American dream. Their parents couldn't vote, and their grandparents were slaves. And so they were taking advantage of these doors that just got opened. We're just barely beginning to be opened. And so I was born into that in New York, and then my family moved to Hollywood, California, very soon after my birth. I was less than a year old, and then I spent the majority of my childhood in Hollywood. My parents split, and then my father moved to Hawaii. So I did a year and a half living in Hawaii, and then I came back, and then I went to boarding school in New England, and then I stayed back east for college, and came back to LA again after college. I sort of did this big loop, from New York all the way out to Hawaii, back to New York, and then back to LA.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpackage there. So we're talking about Hollywood era, in the 70s. This is basically the time you kind of grew up. Yeah, there was this thing in the black community and black culture too. They were kind of targeted by the FBI, especially black entertainers in the 70s in entertainment of like being communist, and also like Eartha Kitt was part of that, but that could have been like pre-70s. That could have been more than the 60s.
Yeah, that was early. I mean, that was like part of the whole like House of Un-American Activities, like the whole McCarthyism crap.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff at the end of the 50s. But I mean, look, it's always happened. I mean, arguably it's happening now. So I mean, there's always been, in every era, there's been a bunch of people who are, confuse, patriotism with, with nationalism and start doing, questionable stuff in the name of, defending, the country. I was listening actually to Paul Robeson, the great, black opera singer, operatic singer at least. I was listening to his like, I guess, trial, for that. He was accused of being a communist. And,
right.
Yeah, I mean, and then so much just, hasn't changed. And then, Richard Pryor was, stalked, and, and I mean, every powerful black person, gets a few eyeballs on them.
Yeah. Just a little bit of money and power to their name, and then it just becomes a target.
Yeah, it's like that Malcolm X, the Spike Lee Malcolm X film where, the FBI, where they're watching Malcolm, give a rally, and I think the quote is like, that's too much power for one black man to have.
Yeah.
But that was the, Hollywood was, I wrote about this in the Cookies and Milk memoir that you talked about. It was seedy, but it wasn't scary. I mean, it was definitely a different time, and there was, it wasn't, it wasn't a place most 21st century parents would probably want to raise their kids.
Yeah, sure. What was the neighborhood? Like, where'd you live?
I lived on a street called Courtney Avenue, which is just literally about, my house was maybe 200 yards north of Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
At the very sort of western end of Hollywood Boulevard. So it wasn't the part of Hollywood Boulevard where there's like, the stars on the, on the sidewalk. It's more residential, but, and it's right at the foothills, at the base of the Hollywood Hills. So there's like these canyon sort of roads that sort of wind up north of Hollywood into the canyons, and that's sort of, I lived about maybe a mile east of Laurel Canyon, which is the famous sort of music mecca in the '60s, where all the Crosby, Stills and Nash and Harry Nilsson and all these folks were hung out. So there's a lot of music. It's basically anyone who lived in Hollywood was either involved in entertainment or drugs or porn.
Right. I was just about to say, man, pimps and like peep shows and like drugs, that was just the thing in Hollywood.
Yeah. It was just a lot of, but everyone, you talk about that hustling thing. I mean, everyone was a hustler, right? I mean, it's like, so, I mean, Quincy Jones was a hustler by his own admission, and, and the pimp on the corner was a hustler, and my dad was a hustler, and, the guy selling the dime bag was a hustler, and, the gay bodybuilders who lived in the apartment complex, I could see them through my bedroom window, who were, taking, steroids and, fucking each other and, preparing for their Mr. Universe contest. I mean, they were hustling. I mean, everyone was hustling. I mean, but it was, there was like a commonality to it, because Hollywood's this place where, everyone's coming there with a pretty singular purpose. They're coming there to reinvent themselves. They're coming there to escape themselves. They're coming there to make it on some level. And so there's like this common, there's sort of a culture around that, right? I mean, it's sort of the culture of reinvention, the culture of imagination. And so it bonds everyone. So everyone's sort of on the same side. So there's I never felt I was in danger in any way. I never felt like, I felt like I was taken care of. I literally was. I mean, I was very taken care of by the hookers who stood on my street corner. I was taken care of by, the super stoned friends of my parents, who were
right.
giving me advice I still, take to this day on some level. I mean, so it was very, it was a weird, it's weird to say it was nurturing, but it kind of was in a way.
Well, I mean, it's a community of like-minded people, right? And especially people like places like Hollywood. Like I lived in Hollywood for maybe a month and a half, like 2 months or something, recording a record there. And then, Yeah, I definitely got the sense, and you know this like from movies, that people are going there for this dream. They have this common thing in them, and I think that's the bond, right? And then you can kind of get beyond race. You can get beyond even gender. You can get beyond sexual identity, and it just kind of becomes this.
It's because talent transcends all that, right?
Oh man, totally.
All that matters is, are you talented?
Yeah, right.
That's just all that matters.
Yeah.
And even then, it's not enough. I mean, there's certainly, a degree of nepotism involved, and, sexual favors, and, and who and just a, whole lot of luck, right?
Right.
But, the foundation for all of it is talent. I mean, you got to be talented on some level. And so, and that is, talent's colorblind, man. Talent doesn't care about gender or race or, sexual orientation. It's just, are you talented? And people will sort of see past everything else, and that's sort of the beautiful thing about LA.
It really is, man. There's a beauty and there's a darkness to it. There's a great duality about it. But especially in your life, and especially me, I already kind of know a little bit of the backstory, especially with Wally. And I knew he was a manager, and I knew he was involved in music. Like, he had a comedian signed at one point, and I can only assume you just kind of tagged along, right? And so you got a front row seat into entertainment, and just by proximity, you are just around this culture. It's not that you wake up on Saturday morning, you're watching cartoons. Like, you probably wake up late Saturday and you're going to hit the clubs, like with Dad or something.
Yeah, I did both, and I watched my favorite cartoons for sure. But it's all I knew, man. I mean, it's all I've ever known. I mean, we talked about me moving to Texas, recently, and and I got to tell you, I mean, being here, it's the first time in my life where I've ever lived in a place where entertainment is not sort of central to the community, right? So I've always viewed sort of communities, and viewed myself, and viewed, frankly, and I'm not proud of this, viewed sort of, what is valuable or not valuable, through the lens of entertainment and art. And entertainment and art are two different things, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I spent time in Nashville. I mean, Nashville is a town where entertainment drives a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
New York. I mean, everywhere I've been, I've sort of, that's been my gravitational center. And so to be in a place where it's not the gravitational center, what comes out immediately for me, at least, is like, oh my God, sort of just the arrogance of thinking that, the world revolves around art or entertainment. I mean, the world certainly needs art and entertainment, but it needs a whole bunch of other things as well. And so I sort of get I sort of understand being away from it for the first time in my life, on a day-to-day level. I sort of get why a lot of America sort of gets really fed up with the sort of smug, not smug, because but the overly sincere sort of overwrought entertainer as soul savior kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't get it until I got some distance. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of annoying.
Oh, it is 100%.
And I was like that. I mean, to some degree. I mean, I wasn't like a sort of, well, like, the idea you sort of you put your hands up in namaste every time you say hello or goodbye to somebody, right? Or you're sort of making sure your entire life is one sort of Barnes and Noble, or not Barnes, like Crate and Barrel catalog, from start to finish or something. So I like the fact that I grew up around that business, and I didn't, and because I grew up around it, it was just a business, right? I wasn't starstruck. I've never been starstruck. Sometimes I wish I had just more respect for some people I was meeting, but I just don't. I never put any of these people on a pedestal. I just saw it's a job like any other job, and I saw people do the work. I mean, I went to far more writing sessions and recording sessions and, camera blocking, rehearsals for TV shows. I went to far more things like that, rehearsals, run-throughs. I went to far more things like that than I went to red carpet events or premieres or opening night parties. I went to see this, but, when you go to the working sessions, the stuff where no one's around, it's work, man.
Right.
It's like
right.
It's thankless, tireless, boring, often tedious, introspective work.
You had this is what's crazy, because I think it all like applies to what I'm about to say, is that, I mean, you saw the work obviously, but nothing like screams work to me than like somebody hustling cookies. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the stories of like your dad like carrying around a brown bag and like just everybody's like reaching for those cookies. Like, just to take a thing that is so common, but it's so good, but that dude is like just slinging cookies as soon as it comes out of the oven and like make a business out of that. I mean, that you can apply that to weed, you can apply that to anything else, obviously.
Totally, man.
But bro, I think
a fix is a fix.
Yeah, dude, sugar, cocaine, it's all the same, really.
Yep.
But what's crazy to me is that I think you just had a front row seat to that. That's something I totally didn't have. I mean, I'm just from like East Texas, but you saw this work, and I saw a different work ethic. I think we both saw different work, but it was all the same. It was work. But just that front row seat to hustle, man, like that's what's astounding to me.
Yeah. I think it's two different skills, really, right? Because there are people who are really hard workers, right? I mean,
right.
America's built on hard work, and that's sort of the stereotype of, the American, man or woman, works hard, puts food on the table, and there's some hard-working people, all over the place, right? But that's different than being a hustler, right?
Right.
Because to hustle, to me, and I wish I was a better hustler to some degree. I think hustle implies there's a sense of, hubris and just, this insane, untethered, slightly irrational, sense of self-confidence.
Right.
And just the ability to just BS, right? I mean,
Right.
I was watching this documentary with Shep Gordon, who is a famous talent manager.
Right.
He managed Alice Cooper, and he's still, I think he's on Mike Myers, and so, like the balls on that guy, right? Now he's like a Buddhist, and like he's sort of all but sort of forsaken entertainment. But it's like the kinds of scams these guys were pulling, just because they just needed to move forward, right? I mean, and show business was filled with that. People were just literally like BSing their way into every room. It's just like payola. I mean, all the scams that have gone on in the music industry. Those are total stories. Those aren't stories of hard work. Those are stories of like hustlers, right?
Right.
So it's sort of like, I think that there is that nexus of like, you got to work hard, and you got to be a bit of a hustler to sort of get through. I mean, I learned a lot of hard work from my father for sure, and I observed a lot of hustling from him, and I think a lot of the hustling to me sort of turned me off. Like I don't think I'm not. I don't have the poker face, and I can't sort of like, I can like turn down my conscience, but I can't like turn it off.
Yeah.
and so, and I think that there's I think with a lot of hustlers, there's a moment where they can justify, sort of, the means to the end, right?
Yeah, right.
And they will do stuff and say stuff that is like, what the hell are they doing? Like Steve Jobs is a hustler, right?
Oh, 100%.
So like the nth degree, right? That guy was like a total hustler.
Yeah, he was
like
a jerk too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of hustlers are jerks. So I don't know. So I think that I observed them both. I think you need both in sort of, if not equal doses, both in measure, in order to sort of navigate successfully through a lot of entertainment business. At least certainly back in the day. And I also think if you're a black man, you're just like, hustling is that's the only tool you got left, right? Because you've been cut out of like the system on so many different levels. You've been stripped of all, not only you've been like, you're not only providing the advantages, you're every roadblock imaginable is put in front of you. So hustling is like, that's all you got, you know?
Yeah. You're left to your most primordial skills that are left in your hands and in your head.
Totally. Yeah, man. So I always feel, I kind of feel in a way, you know, my, like, maybe inability to hustle as well as my father is maybe a sign of the fact that, you know, my generation has done better than his generation, right? You know, I've been provided some greater degree of access than maybe he has, or maybe it's just me justifying the fact that I'm just a chicken shit on some level.
I love that. Self-proclaimed just chicken shit. That's just self-admitting it, because I feel that way too. Yeah, I think I hear you. You didn't say this, but it kind of feels like it's a little bit of a desensitization. Like you just kind of feel like, you know, you've seen it. There's a little bit of an edge to you though. Like you could see it. You could see this bullshit. But that's maybe just a pattern like you just didn't even want to have. Like this is something like you just didn't even want to carry over or even practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I haven't doses. I mean, yeah, it's like, you know, you are the, you know, children of your parents,
but
right?
Bro, you're in entertainment too. That's part of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I didn't choose, like, you know, farming, or I didn't choose, healthcare. I mean, I chose to be a roots singer. You know, I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
But so yeah, and then it's in this DNA and the social engineering and all the rest of it. I just think that you know, I saw the price he paid, you know, psychically, you know, karmically on some level, you know, and then certainly, you know, the collateral damage that of which I'm a part. I mean, that's a lot of what that cookies and milk thing was about for me. You know, it was just like, you know, I was trying to, you know, undo the damage that was done you know, by him, by my mother. You know, some of that damage done consciously, some of it done unconsciously, and you know, and every child is trying to undo the damage of the parents, right? Yeah, but you know, as I sort of looked back at it, continue to look back at it, continue to make sense of it, and try to sort of define my own life on my own terms. You know, you take stock of what your parents had, and you decide, right? Okay, I'm going to take some of that. I'll take maybe less of that. You know, maybe I'll use that. Maybe I'll leave that part on the shelf. And you know, I've tried to be somewhat sort of selective about what things from him I want to, you know, carry on, and which ones I think I want to leave behind. And I don't want to, you know, I've caused my own, you know, collateral damage, you know, in my life, and I just, you know, I'm trying to cause less than he did. and I think that part of that, for me at least, you know, the key to, you know, leaving as little damage as possible is to sort of resist the hustler temptation. I think hustlers are inherently, you know, pretty selfish. I understand why they got there, and I have total empathy for why hustlers are hustlers. But I think the inherent selfishness of it is something that's a little much for me to bear. Yeah.
I mean, we live in the age of I feel glorifying hustlers. Really, I mean, from like the Gary Vaynerchuk mentality, and then which is, I mean, there's a cool aspect to it, and you hear these stories. I mean, from your dad to even yourself or whoever, that we may attach this ideology of hustler, but they would, like, when you really analyze it. Or look at Steve Jobs, and it's just like, oh, I don't know, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, our president. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's the worst type of hustler.
Yeah,
huckster.
Right.
Barnum, con man. I mean, yeah, that's like the ultimate, like, you know, ugly end of the spectrum of that range of hustlerism.
Yeah. What a con artist, like king, like just that mentality, or just the age that we live in, like it's glorified, and that's how people get to where they are in power. Yeah, it's gross, man. But okay, but you mentioned school. I know you said boarding school earlier, but did you do the college thing? Did you go do that?
I did. I didn't graduate, but I went to New York University film school. So I did my freshman year at Boston University. And then I transferred to New York University film school, and then I left after my junior year because I got what's called a first look deal. So it's like when, you know, a studio sort of signs you to provide some kind of services. Mainly it's for writers, and you basically are obligated to show them everything you write first before you show it to anyone else.
Yeah.
First look. And so I got signed to a first look deal by A&M Films, which was, it's no longer in existence, but it was a short-lived film division of A&M Records, the famed record company.
Yeah,
Alfred
man.
and Jerry Mostar, they were, Sheryl Crow was signed, and the Police, and Supertramp, and Cat Stevens, and the Carpenters, and everyone else on earth. And my father actually had offices on the A&M Records lot when I was a kid, so I sort of had that sort of connection with that company and Herb Alpert. And so they signed me to first look deal, and so I thought, well, that was sort of, why am I in college now? I felt like I sort of was. It was like the mission accomplished sign went out,
Yeah, right.
So,
good for you.
And so I split and came back to LA and then did that first look deal and sort of just immediately got sort of, swept up in my professional
man.
life.
Yeah, I'm dabbling in screenwriting right now, and like that's a unique, different art than songwriting. Like
oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's because I started with songwriting and now I'm doing script writing, but you did the inverse. And so, I guess before we tackle into that, like for you, for songwriting though, you ever dabbled any of that before you tapped into the screenplays?
When I was a kid, I wrote songs. I mean, I wrote like lyrics. I mean, I wrote. I mean, I've always written from the earliest time I can remember. I mean, that was my primary, and still remains my primary, most comfortable, intuitive, productive way of expressing myself. And so as a kid, I kept journals, and I wrote short stories, and I wrote poems, and I would write little, if I ever wanted to win over a girl, my go-to thing was to write something for her. I mean,
100%.
I relied on my written words from a very early age, and I had since that, and I felt like I was much more in control of what I said on paper than I was, at any other time in my life. I could really sort of control sort of the outcome more greatly. And I could just sort of, it helped me just understand what was around me and understand myself just by writing things. And so that was always the case. And then, I think like through high school, elementary school, high school, it was largely short stories, some bad poetry.
Sure. Yeah.
I wrote a couple parody lyrics, like in the Weird Al sort of vein.
I did the same thing, totally.
Fifth, sixth grade, I wrote some parody songs. But I wasn't thinking about songwriting to the extent of like I want to write a song and record a song and make a song. I just sort of was jumping from one written form to another just to experiment.
Right.
And I was a listener of music always from an early age. I studied lyrics really closely, and I was definitely the one guy who listened to lyrics over the groove. And it's always a stereotype that people don't listen to the words; they always listen to the music. And I was pretty much the opposite. Like I loved Bob Dylan, like at a really early age. Where most people were not listening to Bob Dylan because there's no groove and it's not musically complex. It's all about these multi-layered lyrics. I love that.
Right. I mean, we're talking about like late 70s, early 80s, like getting into music, and there was I feel like there's less focus on a lot of lyrical form. I'm not saying that there wasn't any out there, but that like we're starting to enter the age of like really high money radio and like big budget recording sessions where people were focused on dance clubs and the grooves and everything.
I mean, I always like, I sat down with my headphones and the Double Gatefold album, and I'd read the lyrics, and I'd sit down and I'd read lyrics, and I'd read the lyrics like people read a book. I'd sit down and listen to an album. I still make albums like that. I mean, I make albums that are intended for someone to sit down and listen to it from start to finish. I don't know who the fuck does anymore.
Oh, I do. I'm one of those guys.
But that's how I make them. I just got vinyl delivered for our latest album yesterday. And I mean, the album's been out for 6 weeks, but we had a delay on the vinyl delivery because of all the COVID stuff. And the vinyl arrived, and it's a double gatefold, and the lyrics on the inside. It's like the album I had as a kid, and I'm so happy about that. And I just I've always just been into words, man. I think screenwriting for me was Yeah, I don't know why I went there first. You know, I guess it was. I think I liked. I love movies as well. It's a huge movie nut, and I liked the collaborative nature of filmmaking, and just how all these people coming together for a common cause. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like being in bands as well. Ultimately, I think music making and being in a band, felt like a more consolidated, more manageable version of filmmaking.
Yeah,
it's like you need hundreds of people to make a film, and you need so much time and capital. And with a song and a recording and a subsequent tour, you need a fraction of the people, right? And
right,
so a fraction of the cost. And I think if for someone who's I'm not ADD, but I definitely get bored, and so like the time it takes to create one 3-minute song is a lot less than time it takes to create one 2-hour movie.
Dude, no kidding. Yeah, I understand that. Who wants to spend 9 months on a song? It's just demonstrably different.
Takes that long.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, there's something unique about that, concentrating on lyrics first. But for you, it was a process. Like for you, it sounded like it was you processing life, soaking it in, putting it on paper. But what were you processing at first glance? Like, what was childhood really like for you to process and put it down on paper?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still. It was tough, I had a mother who, I wrote about one aspect of living with my mother in that Cookies and Milk memoir, and the other part I haven't really talked about a lot. But my mother was severely mentally ill. She suffered from schizoaffective disorder, which is sort of a combination of schizophrenia and manic depression. So it's a psychosis, and
that's a double whammy, man. That's a tough one.
It's a double whammy, and she had that. It came on right before not right before, but it came on in the years before I was born. So I only ever knew her as that kind of person. So she was in mental institutions, and she was divorced from reality a lot of the time. She ended up committing suicide, and at the time she was leading up to her suicide, she thought I had been killed, and I was someone who was posing as me, and I mean just crazy stuff. It's stuff that's so hard to impossible to navigate as a kid. No kid should have to navigate that. No kid should have to sort of wonder if what their parent is telling them is based in reality or not. Like literally, she thought the phones were tapped, she thought the food was poisoned, she thought the car parked across the street, was someone from the FBI spying on us. I mean, on and on and on and on and on and on. And then she also sexually abused me, which I did not talk about in the time of with the Cookies and Milk, because I hadn't quite fully admitted it to myself. But she sexually abused me for a number of years, and so. So my childhood was a fucking minefield.
Dude, no fucking kidding.
And my father was, largely absent because he was a sort of a serial philanderer, and he, and he was chasing women and chasing his career and chasing, his fame and fortune, and then ultimately they split, and he was doing his thing, and so he was an erratic and irregular, presence in my life. So I was left to sort of figure shit out on my own, because there's literally no adult in the room.
Right. Yeah,
And so I really kind of, I raised myself, and in doing so, I made a lot of bad decisions, and I made a few good ones, but the writing, it was literally the only safe place I had, right? Because it's it's I'm alone with my thoughts, right? No one, I don't have to say this stuff out loud. I don't have to worry about, someone saying it's right or wrong. And I didn't write stuff to show to anybody, because most people don't at first, right? They're writing for their own, survival on some level.
Yeah. It's their therapy at that point. Yeah.
Yes. It was just literally the only safe place I had. And it wasn't even I never wrote fantasy or, sort of, it wasn't about finding alternate worlds or creating some, Harry Potter kind of land or something. I just was writing to just to virtually scream, right, or to virtually cry, or virtually rant and rave about stuff. It was just a place to sort of have a quiet room, so to speak, to sort of to figure shit out, and that's still the case for me. Yeah, that's still the case. I sort of I typically come to writing when I'm looking to figure something out.
Yeah, mental health is like it's not like a solo thing. Like so many people deal with it. Like besides the person that's actually dealing with it. But for you, it sounds like, I mean, obviously you're by yourself and you're writing these lyrics and stuff. What's funny, or it's not funny, but it's really interesting when I listen to some of these earlier records, like even Harlem, like going back to listen to that. Like it was obvious, like, well, there's a theme in this, and I understand the concept of it, but there was no angst to you, especially like everything that you described, because like if you're an artist or songwriter, you write these so personal songs and you want to be this Alanis Morissette thing and put it on a page, and it's a jagged little pill where people will know that I was abused and this was the thing. Like was that ever a thought in your head of like trying to do that yourself as an artist, like from early on, like to be that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it came out in some of my early performances. I mean, I would say that when I performed, up until I started performing blues, the two places I drew from as a performer were either rage or interest or sadness. I mean,
that's all you got, really.
Yeah,
that's all you knew.
I mean,
yeah,
it's just two polarities, right? So I did early gigs where I would come off and be bloodied because I was banging myself up so much on stage, or I'd have other gigs where I wouldn't like take my gaze off the floor the whole time, So I was sort of like so within myself and sort of, doing that classic sort of shoegazer, singer-songwriter thing. So there was these wild polarities, but in terms of what came across in the recordings, I don't know, man. There's some rageful stuff in there. I guess it's how I expressed it. I mean, like, there's a song on that album on Harlem called Blackface. Yeah. Which is a tough tune, And then and it's pretty. It's filled with a little bit of self-loathing, and it's filled with a lot of sort of finger pointing at other blacks I felt sort of wronged by, and and even like a song like Independence Day.
Yeah, I loved
opens that album. Yeah, it's one of my favorite songs I've ever written to this day. And there's a whole middle section that was sort of quotes a Langston Hughes poem, and it's full of rage. It's basically saying like, America will never be America to me. I mean, it's like in light of what's going on right now, it's just true as ever. So I don't know. So I would challenge that a little bit. I think there's a lot of sort of anger and rage and certainly a whole lot of hurt and pain in a lot of these lyrics. I guess the delivery for me, I've never sort of been a screamer. One, I don't have that kind of voice. I can't do it. And then there's a few recordings on where I sort of get up there, and it's never fully convincing. And I also was just sort of, it's the musical forms I gravitated towards. I was always just really, gravitated towards music that could be played together, in a room, music that was sort of made from wood, so to speak, versus music that was made from, electronics. And so it just creates a certain kind of musical environment that is less sort of, I guess, intense.
Listening or thinking back, especially to Harlem and even some of those early projects, like I do know, like there is some anger there is angst, but it's not displaced, it's not misplaced, it's just not pointing the finger, especially at your personal circumstances, especially with your mom.
Sure, yeah, I never feel comfortable doing that. Maybe like the cookies and milk thing I wrote, and that's really, I went to great ends. Like say, look, I understand these people. You know what I mean? I understand how my mother got to where she got. I get it. I understand. The kind of the set of circumstances that created someone like my father. I have like nothing but empathy for my parents, and at the same time, I want nothing to do with them. I mean, I'm saying everyone that's passed away now, so that's been taken care of. But meaning that I gave up so much of my life, and so much of my life was taken away from me, because of the things they could not figure out, right? And so I had to sort of lay on the sword for that and say, okay, well, like how long do I have to do that for, right? I mean, at what point can I just say, you know what, I'm off this train, right? And so that's sort of my mindset with that, and it bleeds into my writing as well. I'm just not really into, I'm not. I do very little finger pointing. I mean, and I guess, and it serves a purpose. I mean, I think the most I've ever done it really is on this current album on Blue Sky, where like there's a song on this current album called "Carrying Down the Days," and it's the first song's like "Carrying Down the Days" so I leave Frisco, Texas.
Yeah,
right. And it's a pretty screaming line. It's definitely the most like muscular, in your face song I've written. I mean, both musically and the vocal delivery. And at first, I was uncomfortable with it. I was uncomfortable with how much sort of overt rage was in my voice. Right? And I kind of, James Sayers, who was our producer, like the vocal track on that album is the demo. And it's a demo vocal, and I wanted to re-record that thing, from day one. I'm like,
of course you would, right.
And it was mainly because I was really uncomfortable with how angry I sounded, and it felt like maybe am I being self-pitying? Is it too, I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with my own anger, and I was uncomfortable with the display of my anger because I've never really displayed anger publicly, and I haven't displayed it that much privately either.
And so that's so interesting because it's like that thing of, anger is a human emotion, and it's something that you shouldn't be ashamed of. Like even Jesus was angry at one point in his life, Yeah,
it's not a shame thing. It's not a shame thing. It's just discomfort.
And that's just it. Like it's this thing of when we're doing it, it makes so much sense when Karen is yelling at the manager right now. But then when you look back at it in this 2020 vision, it's like, that is embarrassing. That's weird. That's a lot of emotion. So just a full 100 emotion is such a scary concept to a lot of people.
It's a lot, man.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. I mean, I agree. I mean, look, it is important to release anger, because if you don't, it will kill you, right? I mean, that's why people get cancer and fucking, all sorts of, heart attacks and, unresolved rage and anger will kill you, no doubt about it. I just, I feel like I've never been one to want to put it on display. That Alanis Morissette sort of announced is a good one, right? And I dug that out when it came out. And, everyone likes to see someone just lose it, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's like watching the train wreck, It's like, it's like everyone likes to see someone lose their shit. And that song, those songs on the album, are like the performers are like, wow, she's losing her shit, right?
Right.
And it's like, you go. I just didn't want to put myself on. I've never had the desire to put myself on display like that. And so the moments I had of rage or anger, to me, it's like, you want to process it, get out of your system, and move on. You don't want to live in it every day, right?
Right.
And so but that song, "Carrying Down the Days," it just sort of came out, and I had to sort of admit it, acknowledge it, and then ultimately sort of, have my own sort of version of courage, just put it out there. And I'm glad I did, because it's like, just like every song, you hope it's gonna find a home with people, and people are going to make it their own. I've gotten, tons of wonderful emails and comments from people who are like, I got an email from a guy who is he's a truck driver, and he plays that song every morning he drives to work, because it's like his rallying cry. It's just like, count down the time, Frisco, Texas. And I'm like, because everyone's got their own Frisco, Texas, right? I mean, it's like everyone's got their own place that they just, they want to get the fuck out.
Right.
It's what every Bruce Springsteen song's about.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. I'm so glad you did. No, that's something I've appreciated from your writing, and just throughout history. It's the thing for you of there's some anger there. Where does that come from? Okay, now I understand where it comes from, but now it's applied to how blacks are treated in this present day and time. Like there's a song like 2017. It makes me think, oh well, shit. Really not much has changed in 3 years. And so, but even from the record Harlem all the way to Tells It and some of the political things that you stand up for and you're not afraid to say it, to me, that's that's where the anger is now displaced in a good way to say, oh, listen to this, you dumb fucks, or whatever that is.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, man. Thanks. I mean, it's funny, it took 2017 from that, the last Breaks It Down.
Yeah.
There's actually another song on that album called Does My Life Matter, which to me is like, I've been thinking about that song a lot in the wake of what's going on in Minneapolis. And, I mean, the sort of, you kind of write the same song over and over again, right? Or the same, few songs. And a lot of my, I guess, maybe if I had dressed these songs in more overt, rageful arrangements, or if they're more like, blood-curdling guitar, or they're just, louder in some way.
That's kind of the foundation of blues. I mean, right? I mean, it came from a place of hardship and disencouragement, and the man just kind of putting people down. And this was a way that, they could have like some floor stomping songs that help everybody dance at the same time, but it was still heart and soul and grit.
Yeah, totally. I think it's also about like, secret languages and codes.
Right,
too,
right?
I mean,
right.
And because there's a way to pass messages along that wouldn't be understood by, the slave owners or by, the landowners. And so you could, to say, the eagle flies on Friday, it's like, it's like people want their own private language, right?
Right.
Sometimes people need their own private language. I mean, that's, I wrote and I write parts of my own private language. And a lot of what I write sometimes is, inscrutable to anyone but me.
Yeah.
And,
right.
and it's that way on purpose. I sort of, I get to choose when I want to attempt to be understood versus when I don't care if I'm being understood,
Yeah.
So
That's a crazy thing, because it's like, especially as an artist, like I feel like the last thing you want to feel is misunderstood. But then it's kind of like the thing, well, I still have some stuff that I can hold on to myself, but I'm still able to share. But go ahead and misunderstand it or whatever you like, but that's not what it is. Because the last thing you want to do, like in an interview, is like, ooh, what does this mean? What does this mean? Do we have to do this again?
Yeah. Well, that's what we live in now, right? I mean, the idea of like mystery is gone, right?
Right.
Everything explained to them in order for them to, feel they can enjoy it, and the idea of nuance and sort of subtlety is sort of lost to it's a dying art. It's interesting because it's like we talk about these songwriters, and it's like there's like this thin line of like being confessional, versus being like, I guess, communicative, right? And I've loved my share of like confessional songwriters. Like I love like John Lennon's solo work for like so many years, because it was so like particularly like Plastic Ono Band, right? And just like all that Primal Scream stuff, and just it's like it's pure just vomiting confession from start to finish, right?
Right.
And there's all sorts of songs like that. That's sort of the history of like singer-songwriters to some degree. But at the same time, to presume that the only place you can write from is some place of like personal torture is pretty damn limiting, right? I mean, it's limiting yourself and it's limiting your listener. And I feel like one of the initial attractions for me about the blues was that it wasn't really confessional. You know what I mean? It was really simple, and it was just like, I want to drink, I want to get laid, I want to feel better, I'm a man. The themes were really elemental, really universal, and they weren't. And there's sort of like this bravado that was masking an underlying pain, right? Black men for which everything's been taken away. They've been stripped of everything, and told they're not men, and then to say, I'm a man, right? Muddy Waters, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm a man. I'm just like that's like a declaration, right? Like I'm the hoochie coochie man. I'm a natural born lovers man. I'm a Rolling Stone. I mean, it's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm a man, right? I mean, so there's so much like So on some level, like I said, it's like confessional in a way, but it speaks so much bigger and more broadly than, Mother, you had me, but I never had you.
Right,
John Lennon, right?
Right.
And so I'm sort of, for my journey as a writer, it's been, sort of how do I, on one hand, continue to explore myself, continue to understand myself, continue to, be honest with myself and stop like bullshitting myself about who I am and what upsets me and what makes me tick and what makes me cry and what makes me laugh. And on the other hand, how can I speak to something that's bigger than me? And be part of a bigger conversation, or even if I'm so bold to say it, how can I get someone else to help someone else to think more broadly about their own circumstance, right?
Right.
And so I'm trying to always balance all those sort of various I guess motivations in me as a writer, and sometimes one may win out over the other, and but my favorite songs tend to be the ones where like all of those sort of goals are being met simultaneously. The song that is like simultaneously completely obtuse and yet so specific to how you feel.
Yeah. I think there's, especially in this record on Blue Sky, like it's crazy just that balance of everything. Because like the shroud of mystery, where you still want to hold things to yourself, and there's still like a little bit of mystery that I personally, I don't want to understand that, because that just ruins it.
Yeah,
like, that's the cool part about it. But then also there's still these like patterns that you still have of like, pointing out the situation and saying, well, this is bullshit. And then there's like this stuff of it, and also going into Blue Sky too, like I just feel like it's a different shade of everything else. And I think blue might be the perfect thing of it, because I feel like everything from like some of the protest stuff that you might have had before, it's just not as like heavier. And I think maybe the music and the combination of the lyrics kind of have this palette where it is maybe soakable, where it is this thing where you can sit back and it could be this one thing or it could be this other thing. And that's what's crazy. Like, 'cause I listened to this record probably like 4 or 5 times in a row, and it's man, I still don't have a handle on it, but that's what makes it cool, because it's so diverse to me, audibly, lyrically, and it's like, I think I understand, like, well, there's a combination of all these things, like, in your life and your past records, then also bringing on the brotherhood. I feel like that has to be a thing, too, because especially, like, the collaborative effort of working with some badass musicians, that has to do something for the record project itself.
That was the only way I could get here. I mean, there's no way I could have moved. I was incapable of moving myself forward without those guys. I'd taken this thing as far as I could take it as a lone wolf, with hired guns, so to speak, really talented hired guns, but basically people who are looking to me to make virtually every sort of musical decision, which I wanted to make. I mean, up until this point, because I was a control freak, and still am to some degree, and because part of what I was looking to prove, I guess, to myself and to possibly others, was that I could shoulder all of it and deliver something of value and worth. Right? I could write all these songs and effectively produce them, and choose the musicians and sort of direct them and coax them into what to play, and like my fingerprint. It was important for me that my fingerprint was on every element of it. And not like in an arrogant, it was just because that was part of that was part of the self-expression as well. The self-expression was writing it and singing it, but the self-expression was also the album art, and the self-expression was finding the right drummer and telling that drummer what to wear on stage, and talking about the fill, and I mean all of it was was part of the self-expression. And then it got to a point where the only thing, like, you want to be, it's like, do you want to be a master of all or master of none or whatever. You know,
right.
Phrases. But, it's like, I felt like, okay, I'm at this point in my life, what can I really, what do I do best? I can, I can do a lot of things, and I know a lot about a lot of things. I've had exposure to a lot of things, but what can I really do best? And it came back to writing for me. It's like, I came back to words. I wanted to have an opportunity to just, as much as possible, be a lyricist and express and choose every word and every syllable of every word as mindfully and carefully as I could, and sing those words with as much sort of, precision and emotional clarity and honesty as possible, and to play, harmonica in a way that I've sort of heard in my head for a while, but I haven't quite. There's been a bit of a gap between what I've heard in my head and what's actually, come out of my mouth. I want to close those gaps. I want to dive as deeply into those particular skill sets as possible, and just relinquish control on the other stuff. And to do that, I had to be with people who I could trust to then take over those new responsibilities, right?
Right.
They had to want that ownership, and then they also had to be capable of delivering something, and they had to have this open-heartedness and this generosity of spirit to want to nurture this thing that I started but couldn't take all the way myself, right? It's like they don't want to be of service of this thing versus being of service to themselves. And that only comes with a certain degree of maturity, and also, frankly, just having friendship, right? It's like, I'm friends with these guys. They know me. They've seen what I've gone through. If not much of my life, certainly over the last couple of years with the divorce and the move, and so much of my life being fucking torn apart. And so, they want to see me be healthy and whole and happy. And so they're holding me up. Now that's what a brotherhood is, right? It's
right.
So these guys are they're providing this safe space where I can just sort of relax, right? So that trust exercise where you fall back with your eyes closed in someone else's arms, right? It was like the musical version of that. It's like you can fall back, we got you. We'll carry the water and all this other shit. You just focus on the things that you want to focus on, and we'll provide this, safe home for you. Literally, it literally is a home. We'll provide this safe place for you where you can make yourself a better harmonica player. You can make yourself a better lyricist. You can make yourself a better singer. You can make yourself a better performer, because you've got a foundation with us that will allow you to do that. And that's just fucking such a huge gift, man.
Oh, man.
Such a huge gift.
It's so huge.
And so, there's no other way this album could have been born, without them. It's funny, man. I feel like every album I put out is always, partly, how do I phrase this? I've had this experience, as an A&R guy, right? And I've worked with other artists, and I've produced other artists. And I feel like when you're working with other artists as an A&R executive or producer, your job is to help, the artist, feel comfortable, pull out, allow them to be their best selves, but also, as much as possible, help them avoid their worst instincts. Right?
100%. Yeah.
And so I feel like, with me, I'm always trying to decide at what point do I need to sort of become my own A&R executive, right? Or my own producer. So how far, when do I let that person into the room?
That
right?
headspace is impossible. I feel like it's the thing of you're just so buried into it. It's hard to see the forest for the trees kind of thing.
It's tough, man. And it's hard to know. So I've made a lot, and I've done a lot of projects of my own where I basically was my own marketing A&R guy from day one. And those projects are not my proudest projects,
Right.
And the ones that I'm the most proud of are the ones where I kept that sort of marketing guy, that A&R guy, out of the room as long as possible. At some point, I got to let him in because it's just how my brain's wired,
Yeah, right.
But I think with certainly the last two albums I made, Breaks It Down, and this one, are albums where I really said, I'm going to make the album that I need to make. And I'll let the chips fall where they will, right? Yeah. And early on with the Blue Sky, I definitely was like having conversations with, the A&R guy in my head. And I want to make an album of duets with, cool, female singers. I'm going to do an album on the remake Muddy Water songs. I'm going to do an album on blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're all like sort of concept-y things that were all sort of meant to like help me, gain greater market share with, blues fans, and to help me maybe, they're sort of meant to solve some kind of, business need, right? Like here I am, right. I'm like midway up, sort of, I'm like a middle of the pack, blues Americana artist, right? Like I'm far from a household name. There's probably no Americana blues artist who is a household name.
Yeah, right. That's where I was at.
Guy,
I'm glad you said the joke.
Jason Isbell. It's a niche world to begin with. Right? Anyone who cares about being a household name is not going to be an Americana or blues artist. But that being said, so I'm like firmly in the middle of the pack. Like I look at my press, I look at my chart positions, I look at all this shit, and I know, I'm like right there and sort of in the middle of the pack. And so there's a part of my brain that is competitive, that is the hustler, right. that is wants, greater success. It's thinking about how can I get further up the rung, right? How can I go move from being middle of the pack to fucking, top tier, right? How can I get closer to Gary Clark Jr.? How can I get closer to, fantastic Nick Rita? How can I get closer to, Larkin Poe, whatever the fuck, And so I spend a lot of time in my head thinking about that shit. I don't like it, but when it all sort of shakes out, when I'm writing, I just want to make something I'm proud of,
Right.
I just want to make something I'm proud of. I want to make something that represents my experience, and I feel like ultimately I'm playing like a long game, and it's like, and then the chart positions and the awards or whatever are so fleeting. Yeah. And I tell people, the only thing anyone's going to remember about me after I'm long and gone is, they'll remember my kids and they'll remember, the songs I left behind. Yeah. And I want to be proud of my kids. And I want them to be proud of me. And I want to be proud of the songs that I leave behind for my kids.
Right.
They're that's going to be their sort of, I sort of see these songs as like breadcrumbs for them. It's like they're pieces of their history as well, and their story. And the songs will tell them, what I felt about things, and how I felt about them, I felt about the world. And so that's the part that ultimately, if I'm doing my job right, that's the part that wins out, right? Like right. When the album's done, it's like the album represents that side of me. And I think, that's why this album is Blue Sky and not, the Reverend Shawn Amos sings Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
And so I think, so then all I can do is just, talk about this album and try and, encourage people to listen to it, based upon its own merits. But, I don't know how commercial it is or commercial it isn't.
Bro, I mean,
I know it's good. I know it's good.
Yeah, that's just the thing. It's like, just make good shit that you're proud of, and exactly. Just tell the truth, and that could live longer than any purgatory award that you might get from the Americana Music Association. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know when this stuff is going to, flower. I mean, it's like, who knows? I mean, I have things I've written, like you were talking about Harlem. I made that album like 20 years ago or something, right? It's like, there are people that just now discovering that album. And I love that. I just listened to that album for the first time, in years. That's like cool. A couple months ago when the whole lockdown began. I'm like, oh, wow, right. Yeah, it's like, and I'm proud of it. It holds up,
Yeah. It just takes telling the truth, to be honest. To me, that's at least what makes something like live on, because I can listen to Harlem and think, oh shit, George Floyd shit, just kind of all over again. Like there's songs in here that could reflect in that same situation too. It just absolutely fucking sucks. But at the same time, I mean, if you tell the truth, that truth can just live on. Yeah.
And people discover these things when they discover them. I have no control over any of it. The only thing I have control over is, the making of it. And after that, it's like all of it's completely out of my hands. And I just, the desire to keep telling these stories is stronger than ever. So I'm sort of ruled by that. As long as I feel like I have something to say.
Yeah, man.
And I'll just keep saying it.
Yeah, man. I just appreciate your input and just the honesty, man. That's what this thing is.
Yeah, well, you have a great form. You're doing providing a service for folks.
Doing the Lord's work, my friend. That's it.
Well, stay safe, man.
Hey, man, you too.
Yeah, insane, and I hope we'll our paths will cross in real time,
dude.
Sooner than later.
One day, more than 6 feet. We'll be there. We'll be back to that.
I will hug once again.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, bro. Keep the faith.
The good Reverend Shawn Amos. The new record, the album, Blue Sky, it's out. It has been out for a while. Go stream it and download it wherever you jam your music and listen to it. Enjoy. Maybe you learn a little something too along the way. Make you a better person. Why not? Whatever comes out of it, hope you get out of it. ShawnAmos.com is the website. You can go check out anything that might be happening, videos, any new updates on touring, that thing. Everything about Shawn can be found there, but you can also go to his social media, The Rev Amos, on most social platforms. Just search it and you can find it, The Rev Amos. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. This is SMI. I'm Brandon Harrington. I'm signing off. You can keep up with us, changing little things over. All right, so it's unofficial Brandon on the Insta, but there's still some stuff out there at SMI Podcast. But you can also go to smipodcast.com for all things about the podcast. We got some stuff in the works. Hopefully, we can share all that news to you and keep you titillated until then. But since you're on the edge of your seat right now, what I want you to do, I want you to share this episode with a friend. All right? If you think somebody can get something out of it, you think it was important to your life, maybe it's important to somebody else's life. Hope they can listen to it and learn from it as well. Just share it. All right? And then while you're there at the podcast level, subscribe. And I always hate to say rate us, but go ahead. If that's your jam, why not? That'd be nice. Go for it. But most importantly, we have new episodes that come out usually on Tuesdays and little surprises along the way every once in a while. But we have a new episode up if you hit subscribe. It goes directly to your pocket computer. That we couldn't take the Galaxy 7, I think it was, on airplanes because they would explode. I wonder if they ever fixed that. Probably not. America. And I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the next episode of SMI. I'm Brandon signing off. Hope you guys stay kind. Be vigilant out there. Happy surviving.